My name is Lauren Kim. I'm 35. Last Tuesday at 2:47 p.m., I was sitting in the HR office of Vertex Insights, my husband's tech company, when Sarah Lynn looked up from her computer screen with the kind of confusion that makes your stomach drop 6 floors. "I'm sorry," she said slowly, clicking through something I couldn't see. "There must be some mistake. According to our system, Mrs. Hayes already works here. She's been with us for 4 years, head of operations." The fluorescent lights buzzed above us. My hands went cold. "That's impossible," I said. "I'm Mrs. Hayes, Lauren Hayes. Well, Lauren Kim, professionally, but legally Hayes. I've been married to Ethan for 9 years." Sarah's face did something strange. Not disbelief exactly. More like she was solving a puzzle she didn't want the answer to. She turned her monitor slightly. "This is our employee directory, Olivia Hayes. Title, Head of Operations. Emergency contact, Ethan Hayes, CEO. Relationship, spouse." The word spouse sat in my throat like a stone. "That's not possible," I repeated, but my voice had gone small. "Ethan and I have been together since I was 26. We got married in Portland. I have the certificate, the joint bank account, the mortgage." Sarah clicked something else. Her jaw tightened. "Mrs. Kim, or Mrs. Hayes, I think there's been a serious misunderstanding. Would you mind waiting here for just a moment?" Before I go on, if stories about standing up for yourself mean something to you, please hit like and subscribe and tell me in the comments where you're watching from right now and what time is it there. I sat alone in that office for 11 minutes. I counted. The clock on the wall had a red second hand that ticked so loud I could feel it in my teeth. Through the frosted glass door, I could see shapes moving. Voices rose and fell. Someone said legal twice. My phone buzzed. "Ethan. How's the interview going?" I stared at the text. He knew I was here. I'd told him this morning over coffee. French press, 2 sugars, the yellow mug he'd brought me from a business trip to Austin. Or at least he'd said it was Austin. "Complicated," I typed back. 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. "That's what I was worried about. Come home. We'll talk about it." Something in those words made my skin prickle. Not the words themselves. The timing. Sarah came back. She wasn't alone. A man in his 50s with silver hair and tired eyes followed her. He wore a gray suit that looked expensive but lived in. The kind of suit you wear when you've stopped trying to impress people and started trying to survive them. "Mrs. Kim," he said, and I noticed he didn't call me Mrs. Hayes. "I'm Michael Torres, CFO here at Vertex. I think you and I need to have a very private conversation, not here. Would you be willing to meet me at the Starbucks on Pine Street in 1 hour?" I looked at Sarah. She wouldn't meet my eyes. "Why?" I asked. Michael Torres pulled a business card from his pocket and wrote something on the back. He slid it across the desk. On the front, his name, title, office number. On the back, in precise handwriting, "Your husband has been lying to you. I have proof. Come alone." My face burned so hot I could feel my pulse in my neck. Let me take you back 9 years to the night Ethan proposed. We were at this tiny French restaurant in downtown Seattle, the kind with 15 tables and a wine list longer than the menu. He'd ordered champagne before I arrived, which should have been romantic, but mostly made me anxious because I knew what Moet cost, and I was still paying off my marketing degree. "I have something to ask you," he'd said, and his hand was shaking when he reached across the table. Not from nerves, I thought then, from excitement. The ring was simple. White gold, single diamond, exactly what I would have chosen if I'd been brave enough to admit I wanted something traditional. He'd remembered a conversation we'd had 6 months earlier about my grandmother's engagement ring, how she'd worn it for 60 years until the day she died. "My business partner says I'm crazy," Ethan had said, still holding the closed ring box. "Says we're too young, too broke, too ambitious to get married now. But I don't want to wait. I don't want to build this company without knowing you're building it with me." Vertex Insights was barely a startup then. 3 employees, including Ethan, working out of a co-working space that smelled like old coffee and venture capital desperation. I was a marketing director at a mid-sized firm, pulling 60-hour weeks, loving every minute of it. "We're partners," he'd said. "In everything. 50-50. What's mine is yours." I'd believed him. I met Michael Torres at exactly 4 p.m. The Starbucks was crowded, after-work rush, laptops everywhere, the espresso machine screaming every 45 seconds. He was sitting in this back corner, 2 cups already on the table. "Black coffee," he said as I sat down. "Sarah mentioned you ordered it during your interview." I didn't touch it. "Who is Olivia Hayes?" Michael opened his laptop, turned it toward me. On the screen, an employee profile. Olivia Hayes, Head of Operations, hire date, August 2020. Salary, $140,000. Benefits, full medical, dental, vision, 401k match, stock options. She was beautiful. Dark hair, sharp features, the kind of smile that looked calculated even in a corporate headshot. "She's been with the company for 4 years," Michael said quietly. "She attends board meetings. She signs contracts. She has an office on the executive floor, 3 doors down from your husband's. And every single person at Vertex Insights, all 127 employees, believes she is Ethan Hayes' wife." The espresso machine screamed again. I focused on that sound, easier than processing what he'd just said. "That's insane." "I know. Ethan and I are married, legally married. We have a house, a mortgage, joint bank accounts." "I know. Then how—" Michael closed his laptop, leaned forward. "6 months ago, I started noticing discrepancies in our financial reports. Small things at first. Expense reports that didn't quite add up. Wire transfers to accounts I couldn't trace. I'm the CFO. It's my job to notice these things." He paused. "The deeper I dug, the worse it got. Your husband has embezzled approximately $2 million from company funds over the past 4 years." The number hit me like cold water. $2 million? Give or take. He's been very careful, spreading it across multiple accounts, hiding it in legitimate-looking business expenses. First-class flights to Paris for investor meetings, a luxury condo in Bellevue for client entertainment, a Tesla for business development. All of it justifiable on paper, none of it real. I thought about our house, the mortgage payments I'd watched Ethan transfer every month from our joint account. The account that only ever seemed to have enough for bills, never for the things I wanted. New furniture, a vacation, my own car that didn't rattle when it hit 45 miles per hour. Where did the money go? Michael's expression shifted, something between pity and anger. He's been funding a complete second life. With Olivia. The Bellevue condo is theirs. The trips to Paris, Rome, Tokyo, theirs. He bought her an $8,000 bracelet from Tiffany last Christmas, paid for it with company funds, categorized it as a performance bonus. My coffee had gone cold. I still hadn't touched it. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because 4 hours ago, you walked into our building and applied for a senior marketing manager position, under your maiden name, Kim. And when Sarah pulled up your application, she saw your previous employer listed, your college degree, your portfolio, and then she saw your emergency contact, Ethan Hayes, relationship, spouse." I remembered the way she'd looked at me, not confusion, horror. "She called me immediately," Michael continued, "asked me what the hell was going on, why the CEO's wife was applying for a job at his company under a different name, why we had 2 Mrs. Hayes in our system. I told her the truth. I didn't know, but I'd been waiting for something exactly like this to happen." "Waiting?" He pulled a small USB drive from his pocket, set it on the table between us. "I've spent 6 months gathering evidence. Receipts, security footage, email records, bank statements, every piece of proof that shows what your husband has done, not just to the company but to you. I've been waiting for the right moment to present it to the board. I think that moment just arrived. I stared at the USB drive. It was blue, smaller than my thumb. It felt obscene that something so small could hold so much destruction. Why didn't you go to the board already? Because I needed leverage. Your husband is the CEO and founder. He has allies on the board. I'm just the CFO. If I'd gone to them without irrefutable proof, without a smoking gun, he could have spun it, made me look paranoid, maybe even fired me. Michael picked up his coffee, took a long drink. But now you're here, the legitimate Mrs. Hayes, with your own story, your own evidence. That changes everything. I don't have evidence. Yes, you do. He tapped the USB drive. It's all here, including security footage of Olivia arriving at the office every morning, being greeted by name, sitting in on meetings, and most damning, footage from our holiday party last December. Ethan introduced her as his wife to 3 major investors. She wore a ring. They kissed in front of 47 witnesses. Something cracked inside my chest, not my heart. Something deeper, the foundation I'd built my entire adult life on. I need to go, Mrs. Go. Kim, I need to think. I stood up so fast my chair scraped against the floor. Half the coffee shop looked over. I didn't care. I grabbed my bag and walked out into the Seattle rain without an umbrella. My phone buzzed 7 times on the drive home, all from Ethan. Where are you? Sarah said you left upset. Did something happen in the interview? Lauren, talk to me. This is exactly what I was worried about. You applying there was a bad idea. I told you it would be complicated. That last text made me pull over. I was on Madison Street, 3 blocks from our house. Rain hammered the windshield. I read the text again. I told you it would be complicated. He'd said that 2 weeks ago, when I'd first mentioned applying to Vertex Insights. We'd been in the kitchen. I'd been making dinner, pasta primavera, his favorite. I'd been excited. Nervous, but excited. They're hiring for a senior marketing manager position, I'd said. It's perfect for me. I'd be working on tech campaigns again, like I used to. And the salary is $95,000. That's $35,000 more than I made before. Before. 5 years ago. When I'd quit my job to support Ethan's company. To be there for networking dinners and investor meetings and weekend work sessions. To be the supportive wife who understood that startups required sacrifice. I don't think that's a good idea, he'd said, not looking up from his laptop. Why not? It would be complicated. What does that mean? Lauren. He'd finally looked at me. Vertex is my company. I built it. Having my wife work there would create conflicts of interest. People would think you only got the job because of me. It would undermine your credibility. And mine. I'd believed him. Of course I'd believed him. It made sense. Now, sitting in my car in the rain, I understood what he'd really meant. It would be complicated because Olivia was already there, wearing his ring, using his name, living the life that was supposed to be mine. I drove home. Walked through the front door at 6:23 p.m. Ethan was in the living room, laptop open like always. Hey, he said, standing up. You okay? Sarah said. Who is Olivia Hayes? His face did something I'd never seen before. Not guilt, not surprise, something calculated. Like he was running through responses, testing them for viability. What are you talking about? Olivia Hayes, head of operations at Vertex Insights. The woman who every single one of your employees thinks is your wife. Silence. 5 seconds. 10. 15. Lauren, this is a misunderstanding. Don't. My voice came out steady. Cold. Michael Torres showed me everything. The embezzlement, the condo in Bellevue, the trips to Paris, the $8,000 bracelet, security footage from your holiday party where you introduced her as Mrs. Hayes to investors. 47 witnesses, Ethan. 47. He sat back down, slowly. Okay, let me explain. You have 2 minutes. Olivia is my business partner. We brought her on 4 years ago when we needed someone to handle operations. She's incredibly talented, valuable to the company, And yes, there's been some confusion about our relationship status, but confusion? I laughed. It sounded wrong. She's listed as your spouse in the company directory. She has your last name. She wears a ring. That was for optics. We're in tech, in Seattle. Investors feel more comfortable when they think the leadership team is stable, family-oriented. Having Olivia present herself as my wife made people trust us more. It was a business strategy. And the $2 million you stole from your own company to fund your secret life with her? Was that also a business strategy? His face went white. Michael had no right. Answer the question. Those weren't stolen funds. Those were business expenses. Legitimate expenses that Michael is too risk-averse to understand. We needed to look successful to attract investors. The condo, the trips, the car, all of that was about image, about showing the market that Vertex Insights is a company worth betting on. You told me we couldn't afford a vacation for our anniversary. You said money was tight, that we needed to be careful. I've been buying groceries at Grocery Outlet for 3 years, Ethan. Grocery Outlet. I was protecting the company, protecting our future. Our future. I felt something harden inside me, something that had been soft and trusting and stupid. You mean your future, with her, while I stayed home and played the supportive wife, while I gave up my career, while I believed every lie you told me about late nights at the office and business trips and relationship building. You wouldn't understand, he said. And there it was, the phrase he'd been using for years. Every time I questioned a receipt, every time I asked about a trip, every time I suggested something felt wrong. You wouldn't understand business. You wouldn't understand the pressure. You wouldn't understand what it takes to run a company. I'd let him say it. I'd nodded. I'd apologized for asking. Not anymore. I'm leaving, I said. Lauren, wait. I'm leaving. Tonight. And tomorrow morning, I'm calling a lawyer. I walked upstairs. Packed a bag. 13 minutes. I'd lived in this house for 6 years, and it took me 13 minutes to pack everything that mattered. That should have told me something. Ethan followed me to my car, stood in the driveway in the rain. Where are you going? Away from you. You're overreacting. If you'd just let me explain. You had 9 years to explain. You chose to lie instead. I drove to a Holiday Inn on Aurora Avenue, checked in at 8:47 p.m. The room smelled like industrial cleaner and old carpet. The bedspread had a stain shaped like Montana. I sat on the edge of the bed and cried for the first time in 5 years. Not because I loved him, not even because he'd betrayed me, because I'd let him. The next morning, I called Michael Torres. I need that USB drive, I said. Already sent it to your email, encrypted. Password is your birth date. Why are you helping me? He was quiet for a moment. I have a daughter. She's 28. Last year, her husband convinced her to quit her job to support his art career. 6 months later, she found out he'd been living with another woman in Portland the whole time. Told everyone there that my daughter was his ex-wife, that she was unstable and he'd left her for his own safety. Michael's voice went rough. She's still trying to rebuild her life, still trying to remember who she was before he made her smaller. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry. Be angry, and then use that anger to burn his whole world down. I opened my laptop, downloaded the files, 643 documents, receipts for the Bellevue condo, $4,800 per month for 4 years. Credit card statements showing first-class flights, always 2 tickets. Bank transfers to personal accounts. Email chains between Ethan and Olivia discussing vacation plans, furniture purchases, anniversary dinners. One email made my stomach turn. Can't wait to finally spend a whole weekend together without sneaking around. Lauren thinks I'm at a conference in San Francisco. She's so trusting. Sometimes I feel guilty, but then I remember this is what's best for everyone. She has her life. We have ours. Date sent. March 15th, 2023. My 34th birthday. The day he'd come home with grocery store flowers and told me he was too tired for dinner out. I'd said it was okay. I'd made spaghetti, we'd watched Netflix. I spent 3 days in that hotel room, organizing evidence, building a timeline, understanding the scope of what he'd done. Not just the affair, not just the embezzlement, the systematic gaslighting. The way he'd made me feel crazy for asking questions, small for having needs, selfish for wanting my own career. On the fourth day, Michael called. The board is meeting next Tuesday. Quarterly review. All 7 members will be there, plus the executive team. I can get you into that meeting. How? I'm presenting the financial report. I have the authority to bring in consultants for specialized portions. I'll say I've hired an external marketing analyst to discuss Q4 strategy. He paused. They won't know you're the legitimate Mrs. Hayes until you tell them. And then what? Then we show them everything, the embezzlement, the fraud, the double life, and we let them decide what happens next. I thought about the woman in that employee directory photo, Olivia Hayes. Dark hair, calculated smile, wearing the title that should have never existed. I'll be there, I said. Tuesday arrived cold and clear. October in Seattle, the kind of morning where you can see your breath, but the sky is so blue it hurts. I stood outside Vertex Insights at 9:47 a.m., wearing the gray suit I'd worn to my last interview 5 years ago. It still fit, barely. Michael met me in the lobby, handed me a visitor badge. Conference room 4A, 4th floor. The meeting starts at 10. I've already sent the board members a document via encrypted email. They won't open it until you give them the password. What's the password? Olivia Hayes is not Mrs. Hayes. We rode the elevator in silence. My hands were shaking, not from fear, from something else. Something that felt like waking up after a long, dark sleep. The conference room had floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Elliott Bay, mahogany table, 12 black leather chairs. 7 board members were already seated, 3 men, 4 women, ages ranging from 40-something to 70-something. At the head of the table, Ethan. To his right, Olivia. She was more beautiful in person, red dress, pearl earrings, wedding ring on her left hand. Ethan saw me. His face went from confused to horrified in the space of a heartbeat. What is she doing here? Mr. Hayes, Michael said calmly, taking his seat. This is Lauren Kim. She's the marketing analyst I mentioned. She'll be presenting data relevant to our Q4 strategy. Michael, this is inappropriate, is it? One of the board members, a woman in her 60s with steel gray hair, looked between Ethan and me. Why would a marketing analyst be inappropriate? Ethan's jaw tightened. This is my wife. The room went silent. Olivia's head snapped toward him. What? His wife? The steel-gray woman looked at Olivia. But you're Mrs. Hayes. I am Mrs. Hayes, Olivia said, but her voice had gone thin. Actually, I said, and I was surprised by how steady I sounded. I'm Mrs. Hayes, legally. We've been married for 9 years. I have the certificate, the joint bank accounts, the mortgage payments, everything that proves our marriage is real and legitimate. Olivia stood up. Olivia stood. This is insane. Ethan, tell them. Sit down, Mrs. Hayes. The steel-gray woman's voice cut through the room. Or should I say Miss Hayes, Olivia said. But she was looking at Ethan now. My name is Olivia Hayes. Interesting. And when did you marry Mr. Hayes? We're not technically married. It's complicated. We're partners, business partners. The marriage designation was for fraud, I said quietly. For embezzlement. For defrauding investors and board members into believing that Vertex Insights is run by a stable, trustworthy leadership team. Ethan stood up. Lauren, stop. Everyone in this room received an encrypted email from Michael Torres approximately 40 minutes ago. The password to open that document is, Olivia Hayes is not Mrs. Hayes. Inside, you'll find evidence of systematic embezzlement totaling $2 million over 4 years. Receipts for a luxury condo in Bellevue that neither Vertex Insights nor our marriage owns. First-class flights to Paris, Rome, and Tokyo. Always 2 tickets, neither in my name. credit card statements for an $8,000 Tiffany bracelet purchased last December and categorized as a performance bonus. Security footage from your holiday party showing Ethan introducing Olivia as his wife to 3 major investors, and email chains discussing their relationship, their plans, their vacations, all funded by company money. The room erupted. Board members grabbed their phones. Fingers flew across screens. One man's face went from pale to red to purple in 30 seconds. "This is a misunderstanding," Ethan said, but his voice had lost its confidence. "Those expenses were for legitimate business purposes?" "Business purposes?" The purple-faced man looked up from his phone. "You categorized a $4,800 per month condo as client entertainment space. We've never once used it for clients. I've been on this board for 6 years, Ethan, 6 years. And you've been stealing from us the entire time." "It wasn't stealing. It was investment in company image. You committed fraud," the steel gray woman said. Her voice was ice. "You presented a false wife to investors. You embezzled funds to support an extramarital affair. You used company resources for personal gain. And you did all of this while your actual wife, the woman you made vows to, stayed home and supported your career." Olivia was crying now. Silent tears running down her face, ruining her makeup. "He told me they were separated. He said you lived in Chicago, that you had social anxiety and didn't like public events, that the divorce was complicated but inevitable." I looked at her, really looked at her. She wasn't a villain. She was another lie he'd told. "I've never lived in Chicago," I said. "I've been in our house in Fremont for 6 years, and I don't have social anxiety. He just needed an excuse for why his wife never attended company events." Ethan's phone buzzed. He looked at it. His face went gray. I need to speak with my lawyer." "You'll need more than a lawyer," Michael said. He pulled out a folder, set it on the table. "I've already filed a report with the SEC. Corporate fraud, investor fraud, embezzlement. The FBI will likely be involved. This isn't just a termination issue, Ethan. This is federal." The purple-faced man stood up. "Effective immediately, Ethan Hayes is placed on administrative leave. Security will escort him from the building. All company accounts are frozen pending investigation. Michael, you're acting CEO until we can appoint—" "No," Michael said. "Not me. I'm CFO. That's where I'm effective. You need someone with marketing expertise. Someone who understands how to rebuild a brand that's been damaged by scandal. Someone who has reason to ensure this company survives and thrives." He looked at me. The steel gray woman followed his gaze. "Mrs. Hayes, the legitimate Mrs. Hayes, do you have marketing experience?" 10 years, I said. "I was marketing director at Summit Creative before I left to support my husband's company. I have a portfolio, references, a track record of successful campaigns in the tech sector." "Why did you apply for a senior marketing manager position?" "Because I didn't know what was happening. I thought I was applying to a company that valued talent. I didn't know my husband had stolen my identity and given it to someone else." Silence, the kind that stretches and bends and threatens to break. "I propose," the steel gray woman said slowly, "that we offer Mrs. Lauren Kim Hayes the position of CEO, interim, pending board review in 6 months. If she can stabilize this company, rebuild our reputation, and prove her leadership capability, we make the position permanent." "Seconded," said another board member. "All in favor?" 6 hands went up. 7 total board members. 6 voted yes. Ethan stared at me. His mouth opened, closed, opened again. "You can't do this. This is my company. I built this." "You built this on fraud," I said. "On lies. On money you stole and trust you destroyed, and now you're going to watch me fix it." Security arrived. 2 men in navy blue uniforms. They stood on either side of Ethan. "Mr. Hayes, we need you to come with us." He looked at Olivia. She looked away. He looked at the board members. They stared back, stone-faced. He looked at me, and for just a second, I saw something that might have been regret, or might have been anger that he'd finally been caught. You wouldn't understand, he said, one last time. You're right, I said. I wouldn't understand how someone could be that cruel, that calculating, that empty. They escorted him out. The door clicked shut. 7 board members looked at me. When can you start? The steel gray woman asked. Today, I said. Right now. The next 6 months were the hardest of my life, and the best. I moved out of the Holiday Inn and into a small apartment in Capitol Hill. 1 bedroom, hardwood floors, a view of the Space Needle. Rent was $1,800 a month, exactly what I could afford on my CEO salary after the board approved a compensation package that included back pay for the 5 years I'd lost. I hired a divorce lawyer. Her name was Patricia Chen. She had silver-streaked black hair and wore red lipstick that made her look like she ate opposing counsel for breakfast. This is going to be ugly, she'd said at our first meeting. He'll fight for the house, for the assets. He'll try to claim you abandoned the marriage by filing for divorce. Let him try, I'd said. I have evidence. So do I. She'd smiled. Michael Torres sent me everything. The USB drive, the security footage, the emails. Your husband is going to walk away from this marriage with exactly what he deserves. Nothing. At Vertex Insights, I implemented changes immediately. First, ethics policy. Zero tolerance for fraud, conflicts of interest, or misuse of company funds. Second, mandatory financial audits every quarter. Third, transparency in all leadership appointments. And fourth, I rehired Olivia Hayes. The board had been shocked. Why would you bring her back? Because she's good at her job, I'd said, and because she was a victim too. He lied to her, used her, made her complicit in fraud she didn't fully understand. She deserves a chance to rebuild her career on honest terms. Olivia had cried when I'd offered her the position. I don't understand. I helped destroy your marriage. No, I'd said. He destroyed my marriage. You were just another tool he used. Don't let his choices define your future. She'd accepted, changed her name back to Olivia Brennan, worked harder than anyone I'd ever seen, trying to prove she wasn't the person Ethan had made her pretend to be. By March, we'd secured 2 new major investors. By May, we'd launched a product that increased revenue by 35%. By August, the board voted unanimously to remove interim from my title. I was CEO, permanently. Ethan pleaded guilty to embezzlement and fraud. 18 months in federal prison, $2 million in restitution, permanent ban from serving as an executive in any publicly traded company. His lawyer tried to negotiate a lesser sentence. Patricia Chen destroyed him in court. Your Honor, Mr. Hayes didn't just steal money, he stole his wife's career, her trust, her sense of reality. He gaslit her for years, made her believe she was the problem, that her questions were paranoia, that her needs were selfish. That's not financial fraud, that's emotional abuse, and it should be treated as such. The judge agreed. I didn't attend the sentencing. I was in a board meeting discussing our IPO timeline. 1 year after that terrible Tuesday, Vertex Insights went public. Our opening stock price was $28 per share. By end of day, it had climbed to $41. Company valuation, $340 million. I stood on the floor of the NASDAQ, surrounded by my team. Olivia was there, grinning. Michael Torres was there, looking proud. Sarah Lynn from HR was there, the woman who'd accidentally uncovered everything by being thorough at her job. We rang the bell together. That night I drove to Fremont, to the house Ethan and I had shared. Patricia had gotten it in the divorce, full ownership, no contest. I'd thought about selling it, starting completely fresh. Instead, I repainted every room, replaced the furniture, removed every trace of him. And I kept the garden, the one I'd planted 5 years ago when I'd quit my job. Tomatoes and basil and lavender. It had died that first winter. I'd been too sad, too lost, too convinced I was failing at the one job I had left, being a supportive wife. Now it was blooming again, tomatoes heavy on the vine, basil so thick I could smell it from the porch. lavender swaying in the evening breeze. I sat on the back steps with a glass of wine and watched the sun set over Puget Sound. My phone buzzed. Text from Michael. Congratulations, boss. You earned this. I smiled. Typed back. We earned this. Because that was the truth. I hadn't rebuilt my life alone. Michael had gathered the evidence. Patricia had fought the legal battle. Sarah had been brave enough to tell the truth. Olivia had worked beside me, day after day, proving that people could change, could grow, could become better than their worst moments. And me? I'd just stopped being silent. If you're watching this and you've ever stayed quiet because speaking up seemed too hard, too messy, too complicated, I need you to hear this. Silence isn't peace. Silence is just the price you pay for someone else's comfort. And you don't owe anyone that price. If you've ever walked away from someone who made you smaller to make themselves bigger, type, I walked away in the comments. Ha, no. Or if you chose to stay and rebuild from the wreckage, type, I rebuilt. Both are brave, both are valid, both mean you chose yourself. If this story meant something to you, check the description for more stories just like this one. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for believing that people who tell the truth deserve to be heard. I'm Lauren Kim, I'm 35, and I'm not afraid anymore.